So we're going to take a look at perfectionism and why perfectionism, not just, obviously everybody knows that it sucks and it kills your dreams, right? But like, what is really going on with perfectionism? Like, why do we even do it? Because here I am telling you about how it kills our dreams, and you already know that conceptually, but yet clearly you're watching this video, which means that somehow, some way, you're still perfecting yourself, and it's still holding you back, or it's still causing you to procrastinate. It's still causing you to not actually take action and take steps that you need to take in order to realize your dreams. So what's really going on there? Like, why is that? So part of that has to do with a worth issue at the hilt, or at the core of it. It's going to be how worthy you feel to receive what it is that you're wanting to be perfect for, right? So in other words, because you don't feel worthy or deserving of what it is that you're trying to achieve on the inside in your subconscious, you have to overcompensate and try really hard or be perfect in order to experience that. And part of that worth issue comes from actually being judged. It comes from judgment. It comes from you unconsciously being extra critical or hard on yourself, or beating yourself down. That's ultimately what creates the worth issue. And because of that, now that creates perfectionism in this case, right? It creates a lot of different things, but in this particular video, I want to hone in on perfectionism. So like, what are all the different faces of perfectionism? I'm going to highlight a few. This isn't going to be all of them because there's so many ways to look at this. But one way to look at this has to do with getting what I call maximum results. Have you ever found yourself in this mode where, you know, you're about to go on a cleanse, or you're about to change your diet, you're about to, basically you're about to commit, right? And so before you commit, you go binge, or you go do whatever it is that you like to do before you quote unquote lose your time or lose out on what you enjoy doing, right? This is a pattern of extremes that I'm highlighting right now, but it's also connected or interfacing with the pattern of perfectionism, because not only are we trying to go to the extreme, it's like we're going to go to the extreme prior to being perfect. They're two opposite directions. See what I'm saying here? So it's this idea of getting maximum effort, or maximum results, before you put in maximum effort. Like, you could say it's like YOLO, right? You only live once before you attempt to go and try and be perfect. And because that's so exhausting on you, the inside of you that has the worth issue, it basically wants to just, I'll let you fill in the blank there, but in terms of the intention and the essence behind why you might actually be splurging the night before, this has to do with the worth issue. So that's one of them, right? Is this idea of when you find yourself thinking about, I need to get the maximum results, I need to get the maximum return before I start X, Y, Z. That is perfectionism. That's the beginning parts of perfectionism. That's the beginning, you could say one of the beginning phases or starts of the pattern of perfection. So that's one of them, right? And so let's take a look at what else perfectionism does. Another mode or another expression of perfectionism has to do with putting something higher than ourselves. And so what we do is we attempt to prepare, we over-prepare for an unrealistic and an extended amount of time before we execute. That's perfectionism in spades, right? It's this It's this over preparation of needing to get it right before you actually execute. Of course, this is going to be intertwined with, fear of making mistakes, trusting yourself. All this is intertwined in here. And they're all different lessons. They're all different angles to actually healing this pattern. They're all different lessons that are encoded in this experience. So, we're looking at 2 different ways right now. I'm only going to go over 2. But one of them is getting that maximum effort. I keep saying maximum effort. It's maximum results. Getting max results before you put in the maximum effort. That is the beginning stages of perfectionism. But then there's this other piece of where we have to over prepare in order to execute. And so what happens is, I've already highlighted a few, right? Trust issues that are encoded in there, fear of making mistakes. But then there's this other piece as well about procrastination. And so you end up putting off and putting something out way ahead of time in order to get it right, which I've already explained. But just like there's this thing about not trusting yourself in order to take the action and learning with the flow, going with the flow of things, and there's this heaviness that comes with it as well, because now there's a constrictedness here, or constrictingness, or or constriction, right? There's a constriction here with perfectionism and the researching, because there's no creative flow there. You take out all of the flow and you're basically just working on straight strategy. And then let's say by the time you actually do execute, you execute maybe one time, and then you go back into the research mode of trying to get it right and trying to get it perfect. So you never actually get momentum in order to learn from your experiences. And matter of fact, you're probably more afraid of the experiences that you're having, or that you're going to have by taking action. I'll say that again. You're probably more afraid of experiencing you're probably more afraid of what you're going to experience if you were to take action. You're probably afraid of what you might experience should you take action, and you might not even know it. So, I feel like it's important to take a deeper dive and a deeper look at like what is really going on here, and break this down just a little bit here. Because if you do have perfectionism, then the key here is that you've got to start catching yourself in the beginning stages. You have to be able to identify when you're in the pattern. And that goes for any pattern, but for today we're focusing on perfectionism. So, do you know in your life right now what you choose to engage in as you're entering into the pattern? I've already highlighted 2, right? Research and development prior to taking action, and 2, maximum results, having to get the maximum benefit, the maximum results, the maximum return. So if you ever find yourself in these 2 different expressions of this pattern, it's, and again, that last one with maximum results is technically a pattern of extremes that you're working with, but it's also it's the precursor to being perfection, or being the pattern of perfection, or being perfect. So if you'd like more assistance with being able to get to the emotional energy, because remember, all of this is rooted in it's rooted in the core issue of having a worth issue, which means that you're healing the part of you that's hurt from the judgment, and then you also at some point need to be healing the judger. So this is how you clear these patterns. Yes, you want to start catching these things, right? And that can help you, that can aid you, that can definitely support you in actually clearing the pattern. But it's not going to take you the full distance, because the full distance requires you to go into yourself transformationally speaking, emotionally speaking, rewiring the worth issue and the judger, we'll just call it, for example, inside. These are two different aspects inside yourself. And so if you're ever, I'll give you one last tip in terms of healing this worth issue. If you're ever feeling guilty, if you're ever feeling shameful, the reason why is because unconsciously you have a voice inside that's judging you. And you're now in the receiver side or mode of that judgment, which means you're completely, more than likely, not more than likely, but most of the time in the beginning, you're unconscious to you judging yourself. You don't even hear it, but you feel the effects of it. So if you want assistance with healing this, if you want assistance with clearing this pattern of perfection, and you want to be able to get into the emotional energy and start processing, healing that, transforming these things, because it is gonna take time, but it's gonna take a structure and a system. It's gonna take a modality for you to be able to actually heal this stuff at the energetic, causal / emotional levels. So if that's something that you're interested, at least interested in perhaps speaking with me about, or at least curious about how you might go about that, then book a call with me and we'll get you on the calendar. We have different ways of going about this, but at the end of the day, it's about you making that conscious commitment and that conscious choice to say, you know what, like, I'm tired of going through these up and downs, because I've certainly, clearly, obviously had this pattern and I'm still working through it. But the truth is that I know that I'm making progress because I'm getting to these emotional roots, and the patterns themselves, they become lighter and lighter and lighter. They become less dense, less heavier. They become, less, you could say the negative effect that they have becomes less and less and less. So that's how you know you're clearing it. If you're doing the repeat and you're not actually having a healing experience on a regular basis around some of this, meaning like where you're, feeling something, like feeling something light, feeling something of the light, feeling something that's opening your heart, maybe having a few tears, experiencing deep, profound movements of gratitude, an open channel, a way of like really landing in yourself and coming to some type of a new realization or some type of a new way of looking at yourself and perceiving the world. If this isn't happening for you on a regular basis in an emotional way, then you're not transforming. This is really critical and really key for you to understand. So if this was helpful, definitely leave a takeaway in the comments. If you want more questions, you can obviously ask a few questions in the comments. I'm not sure how many I'll get to, but the best way to get the value and to get your questions answered is just to book a call with me. And look, like, we don't have to work together, but I'm not attached to that. But I will tell you that if we do, I will help you heal this. So have a wonderful night, and I'll catch you on the next video. And no, I'm not fucking perfect. And you can judge me for it, or you can have acceptance of it and see the value that is still inherent in the imperfection.